Welcome back to the Law&Crime Network. My name is Bob Bianchi. I'll be with you at 3 o'clock. We got 3 active trials going on. Just as an update, 2 of them are on break right now, and the Nicole Nachman case, which is going to be another doozy of a case, an insanity defense, is in jury selection right now. And to let you know, the Mueller testimony, part 2, as you know, he's been going all morning. We are live streaming on the lawandcrime.com, Law and Crime Network. You can find us and you can see live streaming there if you choose to do that. Now, in the Rosenbaum trial, we've been breaking it down. They're on break. Some very compelling testimony. So far, very favorable case for the prosecution. The defense has called some witnesses. First one we looked at today, well, we don't think was too bueno for the defense, but there was also Mary Rosenbaum, that is Joseph's mother, who testified as the defense witness. Now keep this in perspective of what's happening. We have a singular law firm that's representing both Jennifer and Joseph, and they chose to call Joseph's mother to the stand. Let's take a listen. Okay, Gene Rossi, so what we're hearing from this witness is that she never saw Layla being hit, that Jennifer used to use time out as her method of punishment, that she was, Layla, affectionate to the defendants. They were good parents. You know, all things that you would imagine a grandmother would say and could actually be completely truthful. But so far, not a bad witness for the defense.
No, I think this is obviously their best witness, but that's probably in relative terms not saying a lot. She had a lot of sincerity. And it's not surprising that she did not see anything personally between the 2 daughters and the parents in front of her, the grandmother. That makes total sense because all the bad stuff was done behind closed doors when the parents were home alone.
Yeah, and Latonia, to that point, though, the defense was bringing out that she would be wearing sundresses, and sometimes she would see her when she didn't have clothes on, and so she would be with her alone many times, and she didn't notice any kind of bruising and injuries. And I keep saying this, me and Gene Rossi have been really all over this, like one defense lawyer for 2 defendants who, in my opinion, have possible antagonistic defenses. This kind of testimony from Joseph's mother could really go a long way to support Joseph. Everyone's fooled, even a grandmother who's with the kid all the time, and the people in the neighborhood, and the people at the school, and the doctors. Everyone's fooled. Joseph was fooled. He had no idea Jennifer was doing all these horrible things to this little girl. That could be an argument a defense lawyer would make if there were 2, not 1 lawyer in that courtroom.
Correct. And even as a prosecutor, in looking at it, I've been a defense attorney as well. I think there's a major conflict here. I think it's very hard to say how you can effectively represent the interests of 2 defendants at the same time, especially when the theories could be different. Because one of the main charges of the prosecution against the husband, Joseph, is the fact that he knew this was happening and didn't do anything. And like you were saying, Bob, if you could be able to prove, much like his mother, who supposedly kept the child for a week, didn't notice anything, that maybe he wouldn't have been able to notice as well. But you're trying to represent both of them at the same time, and you're not able to manipulate, and saying that in all due respect, manipulate the testimony or the way this theory is when you have a witness who's basically supposed to be supportive of both defendants.
You know, guys,
because that's the attorney.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Real quick, I mean, in the chat room on Monday, and you guys know I love going in there, there were a couple of people who were saying, how do we know that Joseph didn't do this? And why is everyone just presuming that it was Jennifer? Why couldn't Joseph have been the person doing this, although Joseph was not there when that critical 911 call was made? But in other words, the prosecution has to prove who did it, and it's clear from their case, as you suggest, Latonia, they're saying Jennifer was the assaulter. He's being charged because he allowed her to do those things. Gene, it could be an argument that you would raise with 2 lawyers.
Oh, absolutely. I got to tell you, the case against Joseph, the husband, is not that strong. Everything's pointing towards Jennifer. Everything's pointing towards the mother. She did the 911 call, and maybe that's a strategy. Who knows?
But see, I think I would disagree on that, because here's the problem that the defense so far has not gotten over is the medical evidence. This child, even the paramedics said when they went to come and answer that 911 call, had bruises from her head to her toe. She had breaks in her body for multiple times, bruises in different stages of healing. You even have a testimony of a doctor who said that he told Jennifer to go get this child's broken legs seen about at Shoah, and she didn't do it. So you can't say that, I mean, this child is living with them day in, day out, and you don't notice that something's wrong the way she's walking. I think that that's where you, as the prosecutor, start going to all of these different bruises. Who but better than the father who is there on a day-to-day basis to see these bruises and have some concern? You had the testimony yesterday that was really compelling as well. It was one of the defense witnesses who was on some levels a mandatory reporter. And they said, and they showed her some of those pictures of the bruises on Layla and said that if you saw these, would they have concerned you? What would you have done? And she said she would have had to report them because they didn't look like something that would just happen.
Right.
That right there.
And there were serious.
That right there.
There were serious
But
testimony.
I got to address.
all right. Well, hold on a second. Hold on a minute now. It is Gene Rossi's birthday today, and since Gene was.
Happy birthday, Gene.
You know, you don't know how bad I want to say. But since it is, we are giving Gene Rossi his birthday rebuttal time.
Oh, no, Latonia, I get it that a father, I have 3 kids. If I came home or I saw the children with those bruises, absolutely. But my point is, you have to prove the guilt of Joseph by circumstantial evidence. We have a lot of relatively direct evidence against Jennifer, and it's always Jennifer. Every time there's some problem, it's Jennifer. She did the 911 call, it's Jennifer. All the focus is on her, although I see you're absolutely right. It's just his case is a lot different than the case against her.
Latonia?
Yeah, and you've got to remember the charges are a little bit different. She's the one who's got the true malice murder charge in there. So I think it's just going to be one of those cases where I think that, especially when you look at the testimony of Millie, and it's like what Gene is saying too, Millie's testimony is more about what Jennifer did with regard to Layla and to herself, not necessarily about Joseph. So the prosecution is hanging, I think, most of the evidence with regard to Jennifer, because I think that's where most of their physical evidence lies. And they also have some harder charges to prove with these malice murder type charges that they've got going against Jennifer. So
I have one.
And once again, I just say what we've all been saying. I think it would be so much better for Joseph if he had an independent lawyer representing him to be able to present his case.
Okay, Gene, go at it, birthday boy.
No, I don't disagree with Latonia. This is one of those little things I always try to pick up. When they were playing the audio of Millie, did you see the expressions on Jennifer versus Joseph?
Yes.
Joseph had a tiny little smile. She was cold. She was cold.
I noted that on Monday. He had a very, what you could call, it's, it's so important. We talk about body language all the time, and when you have to try those cases where you only have transcripts, how much is lost because you can't see the witness testify. But he had this almost loving look when he was looking at it. That's exactly what I saw, and there you kind of see it there a little bit in the photos. Our producers are amazing. They pull it up. But her, you see kind of like the head tilt. I'm not really sure if I could see her facial expressions that well. But I think that he's got a definite case that he can win out. I understand what you're saying, Latonia, but he's not around. He's working. He's the father. I hate to say that. He's not really taking the day out of care for the child, and she's covering this up. It can clearly be an argument that's worthy of some doubt, some reasonable doubt. That at least, if not anything, maybe lower those murder charges to something else.
Maybe so, but you know what? We've seen this recently, guys. If you remember the Tiffany Moss trial and Amani Moss and that same type of situation, I think it's going to be very hard for a jury sitting there to believe that you're at work all the time and you don't notice this child. You don't go to pick this child up and notice that she winces because she's been bruised, her ribs are hurt, or you don't notice the fact that her leg is not in the right position because she's hurt. I think that's really a really hard thing, because a lot of people, when they're sitting on that jury, they're going to think to themselves what they have noticed, whether or not they should think like that or not. They're going to think about that. It's a common sense type of situation. And that's the reason why I keep going to the fact that these character witnesses that they're bringing up, which really are not necessarily doing the best, at least the most recent one with regard to Jennifer, at least, they really need to focus on the medical evidence because the medical evidence is the one that is really hard to get past. When you've got all of these injuries at different stages of healing, when you've got the autopsy, which was done, and there's no evidence whatsoever in the autopsy of anything dealing with that corroborates choking, that this child choked, anything with regard to food, that you even had the medical examiner and a forensic pathologist who came and testified that what you would normally see in those types of cases, you didn't see here. I mean, she also did I believe, the autopsy for the Courtney McNabb case.
Yeah, the pathologist, the ER doctor, and the ER nurse were devastating. Each one individually and collectively, it was just a grand slam for the prosecution. Guys, I'd love to go on, but unfortunately, we got to do a little business here at the Law and Crime Network. We're going to take a quick break, and I'll have more Latonia, more of Gene Rossi, the birthday boy, and more of these three fascinating trials that we're covering here at the Law and Crime Network. Don't go anywhere. Okay, Gene, you taught a lot of prosecutors in your day. I like it. Okay, so she said it right there. You're never going to get me to believe that they did anything wrong. So you know this isn't going to be a witness that's just going to fall apart on the witness stand and crumble. So what he did was, so you didn't notice these injuries or that injury. You didn't notice it with Layla. You didn't notice it with Millie. When the jury knows clearly they had these injuries all over the place. So at a minimum, it really neutralizes, even if the jury were to believe she's telling the truth, her level of observations. I thought it was a very good technique to bring back in the direct case of the prosecution with respect to the injuries. Thoughts?
Yep. Bias for one side is always relevant to credibility. But then there was a great answer for the government. If the son were abusing the kids, that is not a topic the son would bring up to Mary Mom. Okay? So that suggests that maybe the son was involved in abusing the kids.
Yeah, what do you think, Latonia? How do you think, first of all, stylistically the cross-examination was, given the kind of witness that was up there and the substance of that testimony?
I mean, I thought it was good. I mean, here's the reality too, and I think that it really comes off against to the jury. I mean, it is bias. I mean, she said, and she hadn't seen any of the physical, evidence that they have, that's already been introduced in the pictures or whatever. And she says, "There's nothing you can tell me that's going to convince me that they did it." That they would hurt her. The thing that I thought was interesting is that and you guys tell me if you heard the same thing, didn't she say unless Jennifer was the one doing it?
Yes.
Didn't she say that at some point? I thought that was big. And if you would have had an independent defense attorney here in this situation, that's the testimony that you would use. You would have her testifying more to the fact that about her son, because that's who she could truly tell you the most about. This is the person she birthed. This is the type of nature that he is. And that maybe that testimony would have gone better to be able to show that unless for some reason he just wanted to protect her, and that's the reason why he didn't say anything. Yeah, that could be somewhat good for him, but at the same time bad, because it might show that he knew what was going on.
Gene, what did you think? Before she said, "I'll never believe it," she kind of gave this equivocating statement, like, "No way with Joseph," and I'm paraphrasing, and I seriously doubt it with Jennifer. What did you think about that?
I just think you could show her a video of Jennifer and Joseph beating those kids to a pulp, and she would think the videos were fabricated.
Right,
That's how biased she is.
Yeah, you're going all the bias route. As the prosecutor, you're going to go all down the line that she's biased.
All biased.
Now, let me ask you, are you going to go so far as to say she saw those things, she just didn't want to come on the witness stand, she loves her son, she loves her daughter-in-law, or are you saying that people just have a way of convincing themselves, Gene Rossi, of something that is belied by the actual evidence, until Latonia's point before, and here's all of this physical evidence? It's too copious not to be believed.
I think she saw it and she's put it out of her mind, and she doesn't want to believe it.
You know, Latonia, this kind of brings up something that I used to refer to as the mystery of faith in trial law, and that is two people. How many times have you had this? Can witness an event occurring and both get on the witness stand, but because one's associated with the defense and the other one's associated with the prosecution, see it completely differently, and yet I believed that each of them believed what it was that they saw, but both of them couldn't be right. Isn't that a crazy phenomenon that we have as human beings?
Oh, yes. But you know what that also has to do with? Bias, right? It has to do with your own personal prejudices or biases that come into play when you are relaying back what you believe the facts to be. And so that's what happens here. I mean, but I think everybody knows this is like Law 101. Whenever you have your defendant and you're going to put the defendant's mom on, unless it's the injuries to that mom themselves. Most parents, they love their children. Although we're going to say this is not what happened here in this case, but there's going to be this inherent bias that she knows what's at stake for her son's liberty, and so even if somebody else might look at the evidence and say that this is, bad evidence against him, her goal, in a sense, is to save her son. Well, and so I don't think that you're going to get her up here to testify in a way that's going to be deeming for him.
I once had a grandmother who came forward as an alibi witness 3 years after the incident and was called at trial. And I asked two simple questions. I was like, you waited for 3 years to come forward with the information with regard to the alibi. I was very kind to her, and I'm on the aggressive side. And then I just kind of leaned in and said, you love your grandson, right? You don't want to see anything bad happen to him. I'll tell you what, I have no further questions, and walked away. I think the point was driven home more with that. When they saw previously, yes. I was asking question after question after question of other witnesses, and I believe it to be true. So, guys, these are the techniques that you can learn here at the Law and Crime Network with experts like Latonia and Gene and hopefully myself. So if you want to listen to more of that stuff and these other trials that are going to be coming live soon in the courtroom, then there's only one place to watch those multiple trials, only one place. The Law and Crime Network, right where you are. Stick with us.